On February 1st, 1968, during the Tet Offensive, veteran photographer Eddie Adams of the Associated Press took the following photograph that was to eventually win him the Pulitzer Prize and have a major effect on US public opinion over the Vietnam War. It shows then Police Chief General Nguyen Ngoc Loan executing a Viet Cong prisoner, Captain Nguyen Van Lem, on a Saigon street. It became a symbol to the anti-war movement of South Vietnamese corruption and brutality, bolstering an already well-established not my war narrative pushed by the anti-war movement. What is less well known is its backstory and Eddie Adams' reaction to it. In Time magazine in 1998, 30 years later, Eddie Adams had this to say: "Two people died in that photograph, the recipient of the bullet and General Nguyen Ngoc Loan. The general killed the Viet Cong, I killed the general, with my camera." Still, photographs are the most powerful weapons in the world. People believe them. But photographs do lie, even without manipulation. They are only half-truths. What the photograph didn't say was, what would you do if you were the general at that time and place on that hot day and you caught the so-called bad guy after he blew away 1, 2 or 3 American people? This picture really messed up his life. He never blamed me. He told me if I hadn't have taken the picture, someone else would have. But I felt bad for him and his family for a long time. I sent flowers when I heard that he had died and wrote, "I'm sorry, there are tears in my eyes." Indeed, the Vietnam War has become synonymous with advocacy-based yellow journalism, committed to ending US involvement in the Vietnam War. Its key strategy was to employ a false frame of neutrality in reporting that presented the journalist as the truth-teller opposing a corrupt and unjust war. Interestingly, of the few books written that deal with media objectivity in the Vietnam War, even today, one still finds the circular argument that the media was objective in its reporting because the person writing the book accepts uncritically the ideological frames of reference that informed the prevailing media worldview that dominated the airways at that time. Eddie Adams' photograph went a long way in cementing this worldview in impressionable minds denied true context. What audiences were not told at the time was the backstory to the photograph. Firstly, the event took place in Saigon at the height of the Tet Offensive in 1968, after martial law had been declared. Nguyen Van Lem was the leader of an assassination squad. Earlier in the day, he had led a group against, among others, General Loan's best friend and his family. Each of the general's 6 children were led before their father one at a time, starting with the youngest, whereupon their throats were slit. Then the wife was also killed, and finally General Loan's friend was also executed. What is also not commonly known is that General Loan, a Catholic, was the children's godfather. Of course, such niceties did not fit the frame of the anti-war journalist elite, especially those back in the United States, a theme that characterised much of the yellow journalism of the Tet Offensive period. According to Article 4 of the Third Geneva Convention of 1949, irregular forces are entitled to prisoner of war status as long as they carry arms openly and conduct their operations in accordance with the laws and customs of war. Moreover, they must have a fixed distinctive sign recognisable at a distance and be commanded by a person responsible for his subordinates. If these conditions are not met, the person may be considered a franc-tireur, that is, an illegal combatant, and executed by military authorities. However, if combatants remove their disguise and put on proper insignia before the start of combat, they are to be recognised as legal combatants and must be treated as prisoners of war if captured. This distinction was settled in the post-World War trial of Otto Skorzeny, whose German commando unit donned US uniforms to infiltrate US lines in World War II, but removed them before engaging in physical combat. Soldiers who are wearing uniforms of the opposing army after the start of combat may be considered illegal combatants and subject to summary execution. Clearly, Nguyen van Lam, also known as Bay Lop, was not only an illegal combatant, a franc-tireur, he was also a common murderer. Indeed, Nguyen van Lam met none of the conditions set down by the Geneva Convention. At the same time, he met all the conditions of an illegal combatant. He had murdered innocent civilians, including a number of young children, and was a criminal and not a Skorzeny-like commando, and so was executed in accordance with the provisions of martial law in place at that time.